Yo, what's good? I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Now, we don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this is something that's newsworthy. Somebody emailed me about it and asked me about what could the monetary situation be with regard to not complying with a FOIA request. And I'm gonna just keep it a buck. I'm kind of like an expert on privacy, information law, all of that good stuff. So we're gonna dive in and talk about it. As always, I'm Marcus. We do attorney reactions to current events, trending news. If you get some value, I know it's repetitive, but like, share, subscribe, comment. If you want to give extra support, feel free to become a member and get access to membership lives and early access to pre-recorded videos. Now, we are all familiar with the Tiffany Henyard story. It started out as things full of opportunity and hope for the first black female who was young and hip in office, and it ended in a colossal disaster. Actually, Tiffany Henyard may be in line for the Financial Goofy of the Year award because she's on the verge or has went from making 300 plus $1,000 a year to zero, unless y'all in the chat know something else that I don't know. Well, long story short, let's take a look at this really quick video, see if she showed up to court for a FOIA challenge that has happened. And we're going to talk about how much it costs and how she is potentially going to give the village of Dalton a bill on her way out while she's already out of office. She's the gift that keeps on giving. Let's dive in. Let's get it.
Former Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard appeared in court virtually yesterday, complying with the judge's order. It stemmed from a Freedom of Information Act request from a downstate organization seeking credit card records. According to court documents, Henyard ignored the request and failed to show up for a hearing on the matter. Henyard has until next Friday to provide that paperwork. The judge also ordered her to appear in court in person next Friday.
Okay, so she showed up to court. She showed up via Zoom. The judge is like, yo, next time you need to be here. What is the financial exposure to the village of Dalton from this? I will tell you, I have seen Freedom of Information Act litigation result in hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney fees. Now, I will put out a caveat that was at the federal level. So I seriously doubt that there will be that much exposure, but there is some exposure, and there's exposure essentially with regard to two things. Long story short, a quick breakdown of the Freedom of Information Act. Generally, the public can request information from the government. The general rule is we're going to give it to you, unless one of several exemptions applies. What are the exemptions? It violates someone's personal privacy. If it's something that's law enforcement related that would either disclose a confidential source, it would relate to an active investigation, it could potentially risk someone's life or physical safety, or if it's something related to a personnel matter, if it's solely a personnel matter. There are several exemptions where, if they apply, the government does not have to give out the documents that a requester is seeking. Now, how could she potentially be on the hook? Well, there are two ways. One, if there are attorneys involved. If there are attorneys involved and a government agency materially changes their position, they have to pay the attorney's fees. In FOIA cases that I've handled at the federal level, the highest that I've seen built on a per hour charge was about $725 per hour. Again, this is state court. I don't think these numbers will balloon that high, but there is some financial exposure there. So typically, not replying to a FOIA request will get you screwed. At the federal level, you only have 20, maybe 30 days to comply after a person is within their right to bring a lawsuit. You can't just have, like, real talk. In order to process FOIA, even if it's for a small town, you actually need an attorney who can go through the exemptions, the exceptions, and actually know how they apply and apply them properly. If you blatantly ignore a Freedom of Information Act request, which I'm going to just be honest, I believe is the case here because the court is compelling Tiffany Henyard and the government entity essentially to produce the documents. If you fail to comply with a FOIA request, not only going to eat attorney's fees, but if you are found to have done it willfully and on purpose, you know what will happen? the judge will issue sanctions. And those sanctions are going to be high as hell. They're going to be to punish you for not giving the public their information. Now, I know some of you probably say, well, Tiffany Henyard is in court. The judge is saying she needs to produce the document. So the judge is saying, like, yo, maybe the cost, if there is cost associated with this for attorney fees and the willful violation of the Freedom of Information Act, maybe Tiffany Henyard should be responsible for those costs on her own. Yes, that sounds good, but it's definitely not the case. The FOIA request was done to get information that she had or records that were in her possession as a result of her employment and her role with the village of Dalton. So it was a government matter. You can't do a FOIA request for somebody's private information. It has to be for government information. So when someone fails to comply, Tiffany Henyard, I'm gonna just be honest, she probably just ignored it and said, I'm not doing it. But when someone purposely fails to comply with the FOIA, again, it opens them up to attorney's fees, it opens them up to sanctions, and those sanctions sometimes can be high as hell because they want to punish you for blatantly violating the law. So it's going to be interesting to see if and how much of a bill will Tiffany Henyard leave the village of Dalton. Even though she's no longer mayor, she's still having a negative impact. You all let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that this should be something that's completely at her doorstep and she should be financially responsible for? Or do you think that because they're requesting records related to her government duty, the government has to eat it? It doesn't make a difference who the mayor is now. The person who was the mayor was a part of the government entity that violated the Freedom of Information Act. Hey, if you enjoyed this content, check out what's on the screen. There's going to be more content related to attorney reactions and trending news. Peace.